I am so excited for my guest this week. It's Luis Gomez from Real Ass Podcast from Legion of Skanks, one of Bert's great group of friends, and he agreed to come talk to me. Bert thought we should talk about being a dad. He's an amazing dad, and he didn't have the best childhood. So Bert thought we'd have a great conversation about that, but we ended up talking about so much more. We talked about his childhood. We talked about how he got into comedy. We talked about his entrepreneurship and how he's always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think it was a great conversation. I was so glad to get to talk to him and get to know him better. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Luis Gomez. He's such a lovely person. What a lovely human being. Thanks for coming back every week. Thanks for all your emails you send me, birdieboyproductions.com, Wife of the Party page. Please, I love reading all your emails and your comments. Hope you really enjoy this podcast with Luis. I really, really did. So enjoy. Hey, Halston, thanks for working so long yesterday. I know it was a really long day. Thank you.
That's a good way to treat employees.
Well, I mean,
I was like, you know what? Welcome to the business, motherfucker.
Well,
that's
I mean, that
if you wanted short days, you shouldn't have gotten into entertainment. That's what I tell my employees all the time. I'm such an asshole. You're such a nice person.
No, but that's also true. You're right.
Yeah.
But
I also just work. I did comedy for so long before I had any sort of success or any money.
Yeah.
I podcasted for a decade before anything came of it. So It's like when people get into it now and I'm like, you can't complain about money. You don't even fucking know what it's like to work for a decade without making anything.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
We were talking about that the other day, how people don't understand. I get really upset how the way the world of stand-up works is so unfair that you get paid nothing in the beginning. I mean, when Bert was first touring, he made $500 a weekend.
Yeah.
I was managing an apartment building, had a small baby, couldn't afford a nanny. So I was like baby on the hip managing this apartment building.
Yeah.
And he, by the time he paid for travel and food and manager and exactly. Yeah. And I would always go, how does someone do this without like a sugar mama? And I wasn't even a sugar mama. Yeah. I mean, he'd like ask me for $50 and I'd go, we don't have it, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, but we got $25 to last us until you go back on the road.
Yeah, but that's not. Are we on? Because this is a good. I think this is a good conversation. Are we on?
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, but in a weird way, even though if you don't have the money, you are the sugar mama to a certain degree because you have just somebody to lean on, right?
Yeah.
So like when I was coming up, me and my son's mother, she just like it's a big ask. You're asking somebody to have like blind faith in this intangible thing, which is like, there was no plan. I wasn't like, oh, well, Beatrice, this is how it's going to turn into a lot of money. This is how it's going to turn in. This is the plan. And 10 years from now, I'll be making this much money and everything will be good. It was more like me going like, I think I got something here. Just trust me that I will figure that path out. And for anybody to even believe in themselves that much, it's a unique trait. But to have somebody else have that sort of blind faith in you, it's a very special thing, whether they have money or not. So I'm very envious of that. And Bert, having you obviously created, it's extremely valuable. But I watch my friends like Nate Bargatze, his wife Laura. I mean, just, supported him. Not financially, it's not really the way she supported him. She was just there for him and really believed in him. A lot of my friends, Dave Smith from Legion of Skanks, his wife, Big J's ex-wife, she was really there the whole beginning. And I think you really do need a support system there, or it's a lonely, lonely path.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it is the most thankless job in Hollywood because you work for nothing for a long time. Like you said, 10 years before you even see any.
Before you even know if it's a possibility.
Exactly.
You have to blindly go, well, I'm going to invest this time and I don't even know on the other end of it if it's all going to be worth it. Right. Who knows? There's no way. And that is a really tough thing. And very often, more often than not, it does not work out like it worked out for Bert Kreischer, or even for me for that matter.
Right.
More often than not, you teeter out and you go, well, I have to move on to something else. The reason, otherwise there'd be an unlimited amount of comedians right now. They eventually move on. And that is a scary thought. I had a cousin who's this funny girl, really sweet girl, very funny. And she was like, I want to get into stand-up. And I sort of gave her this whole Braveheart speech. And I was like, look, you have to give your life to it. You have to, you're not going to know if you're going to even be able to make money for a decade. I mean, if you get fast-tracked, maybe less than that, but a decade minimum, really, before anyone starts to make any cash and to even know if it's worth it. And then she was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I was like, all right, good.
Good. Then don't, because it is really hard
Yeah.
and it's really thankless. And, I was talking to someone else about this the other day. You guys don't have a union. You don't have any benefits. Like if you're a stage actor on Broadway, you have a union and benefits. If you're a television actor. So not only do you have to struggle, you can't really take care of yourself in the way that you can't afford health insurance. I mean, God forbid something happen and you don't have
Well, you
somebody.
just mentioned a pipe bursting in your house.
Yeah.
If you're like the entire bottom floor, everything got flooded, right?
Yeah.
That would ruin me. Like
Right.
that right there,
Right,
right now,
right.
today, it would wipe me out and I'd have to start from scratch. I wouldn't know what I would necessarily do.
Right.
So yeah, in the beginning of comedy where there's nothing, it is a lot of, you're doing it for legit, and it sounds, very hack and cheesy, but it's the love of the game. You're doing it because you're like, there's this like addiction. In the beginning, it's just laughs.
Right.
And that's your payment. And you're like, this is like, I've never felt this way before. You go up on stage and a room full of people are laughing at you and you're like, I get to feel like the man. I get to get some free drinks, maybe some food, and that's enough,
Right.
And then that goalpost starts being moved further and further back, you start to set bigger and bigger goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that comedy has taught me. That's one of the things that parenting has taught me, is just how important setting goals are. And how we achieve those goals. Like we're designed to hit our goals, right?
Yes.
This is what we do. Human beings hit our goals.
Yeah.
Even on the lowest level, right? I don't know if the lowest level of human, but like even
Simplest.
your friends that are broke, right? They still pay their rent.
Yeah.
Even if they're living on a friend's couch, they still eat every day. They're not starving to death. They're not homeless. The problem is they just set their goal too low. The goal is to just get by, which is most people's goals.
Mm-hmm.
Most people's goals, I just want to pay the bills every month. Oh, I want to take a vacation at the end of the year. Let me save. And they just set this goal and then they hit it. And instead of going, well, wait a minute, let me just set a bigger goal. Let me move that goalpost back and realize that it's all just sort of a game, right? And it's not, a lot of this stuff isn't even tangible. It's just sort of like thoughts and us putting it into action. So comedy taught me that. Being a father really taught me that. Like when my son was born, I was broke. Like I'm stealing baby food. Like, it's absolutely broke. Hopping turnstiles. Like, and I was living in New York City and it was really hard. But I remember saying to myself and to friends and to my son's mother, I was like, look, by the time he has memories, by the time he's 4 or 5 years old, I was like, I want him to have a nice apartment, just some nice things, be able to take a vacation once in a while. And sure enough, it was exactly like clockwork. As soon as he turned 4, things just started to come together.
Because you set a goal, man.
I set a goal.
Yeah.
And then I started going, why would I set such a small goal? Why would I think so small? And now I'm since then, I've been growing in a much faster, more rapid way. And it's all due with just sort of mentally setting these goals.
Yeah. It's about being clear with your intention, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's all a goal really is to be able to really put on paper or in some kind of way that you can wrap your head around what you want. And I set goals differently than I did when I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I would say, I want to be rich or I want to be this or that. And now my goals are about feelings. Like I want to feel secure. I want to feel like I don't need to worry about money.
Right.
Not I need to be a millionaire or whatever. But it's amazing too how your goals change as you grow. And Bert does something that I think is awesome. He's done it the whole time I've known him. Every year on his birthday, he takes himself to dinner by himself. And he writes his goals for the year. And every year he achieves those goals.
Love that.
Every single year. He does it every year. We've been together 21 years. He's never missed a year.
That's amazing.
And so the reason he has so much growth, I think, is exactly that.
Yeah.
Is because he knows that day, and he comes home and he writes them on a big poster board. So he has them. He keeps them in his joke book.
And he thinks big. And he thinks big. And he sees the path to it. I was just when I showed up, when you showed up, I was on the phone with Robert Kelly, who's a good friend.
Love Bobby Kelly. Oh my God, I love him so much.
And we were just talking. I was like, wow. I was like, these guys are really killing it out here. He was like, dude, I know. And I was we were making fun of each other because I was going to move to LA like a decade ago with Nate Bargatze. Nate Bargatze is my son's godfather.
Oh,
we were next door neighbors. We were really close. We have very different careers and paths now, very different types of comedy, but he's my brother. Love that guy. And Nate had convinced me to move to Los Angeles. He was like, dude, you got to come out. It's going to be great. And then Bobby Kelly he was like, dude, don't go to fucking LA. You're a New York guy. Trust me. And then I ended up, through a series of events, I ended up staying in New York. And I remember I always thanked Bobby for it. I was like, dude, thank you for like keeping me in New York, because it really did. It was the right choice for me.
Right.
Until I came to your podcast studio house.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was like, no, I made the wrong choice. I should have come to LA with Nate a decade ago.
No.
I would have been Rogan's number 2. I would have had a lot of cool things happen for me had I not listened to fucking stupid Robert Kelly.
Jesus, wow. That's not true, because you are where you're supposed to be.
Of course.
We always are, and it's never too late.
No, it's true. I can come
you
now.
Still come to LA. Why not?
I can't. Me and my son's mother, unfortunately, aren't together anymore.
Yeah.
So we co-parent. I can't leave. There's no
no way.
Another 8 years though, and then I can.
Is he 10?
He's 10.
Oh my God.
I can go anywhere I want after that.
All right. So Bert told me that we should talk about. This is what he said, because I know you obviously, but he knows you far better than I do. He said he thinks that it would be really interesting for us to talk about breaking your cycle of
My cycle,
like how you were brought up as opposed to how you raise your kids.
right?
So my mom, I believe, is really mentally ill. She's had her on her 7th husband.
Wow.
Don't talk to her anymore. She had me steal things when I was a kid. She had me do like really shady shit. She was really shady, and a lot of like mental shit with her. Like I had to take 21 vitamins a day. She monitored my bowel movements. She was really fucking crazy.
Yeah.
No drugs, nothing like that. She was into Maheshi yogi, like really just an off the wall woman. I learned a lot of great things from her.
It doesn't seem like she's morally corrupt. It seems like she's a wacky woman.
She's morally corrupt.
Okay.
I'll tell you later about that. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say it on here. She's
got some issues.
I've been told by my therapist she's definitely got some serious
Right.
shit.
I'm sure.
So, I was never going to have kids ever. And then when I did, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this totally different. I will not do what was done to me. Like my mom, I believe, has narcissism as a personality disorder. So everything that, unless I lined up entirely with what she wanted, she would excommunicate herself from me. Like at 13, you're dead to me. I don't talk to you for a year.
That's
like
crazy.
That and over and over again in my life. So when I had a babies, I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to see them as who they are, and I'm going to parent them from there.
Right.
And Bert told me your childhood is very different than your parenting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I little things that you said there, I definitely connected with. My mom would have me steal things. She would have me go to Baxter's Pharmacy and steal like the testers for like perfume. And she had a line. She was like, if you get caught, just tell them it's your mom's birthday. They're going to think it's cute that you're like trying to steal something for her. We'll just let you go.
Yeah.
But my mom, from a very young age, I realized that my mom, it's weird because I think that I felt a lot differently about her, even just a few years ago than I do now. I feel bad. I feel like my mom's a victim now. My mom died when I was 22 years old.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And she wasn't, she wasn't a great person ultimately, but she had a really, a horrible, horrible upbringing. She had my sister when she was 18, me when she was 20. She was a child. Now that I got a kid, I had my son at 30 and I felt like I was a kid.
Yeah, right.
And she was on drugs and abused and sexually abused from a very young age. And it came out in a lot of ugly ways. She was a prostitute and a heroin addict. And we were all hyper aware of a lot of this stuff as a young. I walked in on my mom with a John when I was like 3.
Oh my God.
And I remembered, or 4, maybe 4, because I have the memory, but I remember knowing that she wasn't having sex with him for pleasure and that I just knew it was for money. I don't know where it came from.
No, that's my question. How do you know that? How did you
it was an older guy. I was a friend of the family. I just knew. I knew it was transactional.
Right.
And I'd never learned about prostitution, or maybe I had in some subconscious way. And but I just remember at the time being like, my mom's doing this for money. And, just very, very exposed to a lot of things that little kids aren't supposed to be exposed to, right? And my mom was extremely abusive, physically abusive, emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, just almost as bad as it gets in terms of like abuse, poverty. Grew up on Section 8, welfare, didn't, the lights were off half the time, TV was off, never on, phone was off half the time. And my mom was also not to begin with, my mom was very bright, but she didn't, setting goals, there was no goal.
She didn't have skills, man. Where would she learn life skills?
The suburbs is a fucked up place for like poor people, right? The city, when you're in a big city, you're in a big city. I'm in New York City. There's Broadway. There's Wall Street. You're on the subway. There's a fucking millionaire sitting across from you. There's the next guy who's, got big dreams. There's inspiration happening.
Mhm.
When you're in the fucking suburbs or in the rural area where there's just like there's nothing. Nobody's trying to get out of it. There's no path. So my mom was very willing to lie in bed, smoke cigarettes, take methadone, and just fall asleep and barely work. And it was just not a very. I just remember just being young, being like, that's not how I want to live my life.
Right.
I don't want to be a person who sits down. I was very embarrassed if she was on welfare, very embarrassed of her using food stamps. Kids would make fun of me for it. It was something that I was like, and it wasn't like, in my opinion, my mom was too smart to lie there and be that.
Right.
So I just didn't have a lot of pride in who my mother was, and she didn't have a lot of pride in who we were, There was some good moments, obviously, but it was a ton of abuse, and it was very, very physical. And when I had a kid, I didn't know that I was going to be a peaceful parent. I didn't know that I wouldn't. I've never spanked my son. He's never been yelled at. I actually yelled at my son for the first time ever.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
Why?
For the first actual time, because my fucking sister was pissing me. I wasn't even mad at him. My sister was pissing me off. I brought them out to Washington, D.C., my niece, my sister, and my son. My niece is 2 years younger than him, so they're like siblings, essentially. They're so close. They live a block from each other. And
is it just you and your sister? Do you have more siblings?
Yeah, just me and my sister. Okay. Yeah, I actually have a half brother and half sister, but I've never known them or anything. But yeah, whatever it was, we were trying to go to a museum, and we were running late for the reservation. And that's just one of my triggers. I turn into an asshole when I'm running late. I've been so shitty. My Uber rating is abysmal. It's so, because that's when I'm running. If I'm running late, I'm in an Uber. I'm like, come on, we got to go take a shortcut. Like terrible. So that's like one of my triggers. And it was just a moment where he wasn't getting ready. He wasn't paying attention. I kind of snapped at him. And I felt so bad. I felt so horrible, because I just don't yell at him. That's not the way I communicate with my son. It's not necessary. I have the sweetest kid in the world. Like literally, you would meet my son and your heart would melt. He's the fucking greatest kid you'll ever meet. I think I got lucky. I'm a little bit older now. For a while I was like, no, it's the way we raise him, and that's it. I know that I'm lucky. I think, genetically speaking, he's just a super sweet, gifted kid who's, got a lot going for him. But we treat him with kindness. Like my son, he's always treated with love. If he does something wrong, I take my foot off like the affection gas, and you see him feeling immediately. So it's like, if I'm disappointed in him, it's like almost like the old trope. It's like, I'm disappointed as a dad. Like, it affects him. It really, really does. And it's just because he's gotten so much love and so much kindness that I think that, in my opinion, is a better way to raise a kid. So yeah, I started doing a little more research about peaceful parenting and what that meant after I had a kid. But I'll tell you the moment that, so all right, this is a little bit personal, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
What's up to you?
No, I don't give a shit. Me and my son's mother had a huge argument while she was pregnant with him about him being circumcised, because I'm circumcised and I wanted my son to be circumcised. Yeah. And it was as simple as like, I want him to look like me.
Yeah, totally.
Simple as that, you know, and it's, tradition, whatever else it is, right? And she was like, no, she's, I think she was with a lot of Dominican guys or something before me, but she was like, no, it's fine. I was like, all right, and I'm being a pig-headed, ape. And I'm like, nope, simple as that. And she eventually was like, you know what? It's your son. You're the man. I'm going to let you ultimately have the choice. Yeah. But and then she started sending me like videos of babies being circumcised.
Oh my God.
Which is horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like they hold them down. It's true torture. So that started getting into my head. And then, my son, when he was born, they put him in my hands and I'm like holding this little baby. It's this tiny little thing. And they were like, all right, well, it was like 3 a.m. They were like, we're going to wait till tomorrow to circumcise him. And then I was just like, no, you can't put a blade to my son's body. That's fucking crazy. Right. It's just like the instinct to protect him immediately kicked in, and now he's got a weird dick. So
oh well.
He's gonna learn one day.
He'll still find love.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be okay. I think it's also like back when I was born, 82, it was like 90 or 95. You were born in 82? 82, yeah, I'm 40. God. I'm 40.
I could almost be your mother.
No, stop it.
I'm 52.
Well, in Puerto Rican culture, yeah.
Exactly. Hey, I'm from rural Georgia. I could almost be your mother. You could almost be my mother. That's so crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, now it's like, I think it's like 50-50 now, or getting circumcised. I think it's a
lot more normal.
I just try to, I don't know, like,
did you not have, I had a moment of going, I will not be doing that. So let me figure out what this other is. Did you have like that conscious thought, or you just were always like, I'm just not doing that? Because I
just remember as a kid remembering my mother hitting me and being like, I'm a fucking kid. What is wrong with you, you lunatic?
where did that come from? Because some kids don't do that.
No, some kids, well, people defend their parents. This is a very, one of the most controversial things I say is being anti-spanking. And it's something that people are really passionate about because they take it personally and they go, oh, well, what are you saying? I had a bad mother, or you're saying I'm a bad parent?
I got spanked.
Yeah.
I definitely got spanked, but I decided not to spank my kids because I thought that's not communicating. That's in order to affect change in a child, you have to communicate with them, and just hitting them. I guess it is a form of communication, but it's so unclear. Why? Yeah. What's the lesson? Do what I say, and that's it.
And it also, it just teaches them to use force, and it teaches them to, it programs them that is a way to communicate. And I think it's a scary, whether you walk around with a fear of being struck, or a fear of, especially by the person that's supposed to take care of you.
Yes.
This is the person that's supposed to take care of you. That's and you look up and they're hitting you. That's a fucking, I don't care. No matter what way you want to slice that. Don't tell me that that's not psychologically damning. Don't tell me that that doesn't do something to a little kid. I'm not saying that it's going to, turn every kid into a serial killer. I'm just saying that it does something, and I know it's not positive. You're never going to convince me that striking a child is the way to do it. I think people used to justify hitting their wives back in the day the same way. You know, that this is like an old-timey way of thinking. I think in 20 or 30 years, it'll be a crime in most places to strike children. I think the research will come out, and I know people are out there going like, you just don't know my kid. And it's like, well, I mean, to be honest with you, if you're hitting them and they're still acting that way, it's not working.
It's not working.
I don't know the kids who are being struck that are like, oh, these perfect angels. In fact, if you go to most, jails or prisons, most criminals, my assumption, a big common thread there is that they were hit as children, guaranteed.
And weren't talked to. And weren't explained.
Weren't communicated with.
And even if they were hit, like, we don't spank our kids. I spanked Isla one time.
What'd she do?
Oh my God. She was 4.5, maybe 4, something like that. My dad has a lake house with his siblings, and his 2 sisters are very like, no food on the furniture, no feet on the furniture, very all about keeping the furniture nice, right? So Isla gets on the furniture and is walking across the 2 couches. And I go, Isla, get down. You got to get down. And she's la 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 la, still hopping. Isla, get down. La 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 la. And I went, Isla, get down. And she goes, and spits on the couch. And I went, that's it. That's it. In the room. We went in the room and I went, I am going to spank you because this was like the last straw. She had a whole week at the lake of just not listening to me, of not complying, of not participating, she just wasn't listening. So I could say anything and she'd do the opposite. She was in that, she's 4.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, at this point, I brought her in the room and I went, I'm going to spank you. And this is why I'm spanking you. You seem to be unable to manage yourself. So I'm going to spank you, and I'm going to sit you in here with your thoughts for a minute, and then we can talk about it later. So I spanked her 1 smack, didn't cry, nothing. It was stupid. It was useless. But I really was at my wit's end, and Bert was, of course, on the road, and I was the only parent. Yeah. And I had Georgia, and I had, Georgia was older. They were kids, and I just was like, I don't know what else to do. Yeah. I had done everything.
But in retrospect, it didn't work.
It didn't do a damn thing. I never did it again.
Now you have this memory that you kind of feel guilty about.
She probably doesn't.
She doesn't even have the memory. She doesn't
remember. She doesn't remember it all, but she holds it over my head. You know, you did spank me that one time.
And you'll hear that a lot very often. Like parents will be like, I spanked my kids twice, and it was because it came there. And you go, so well, probably didn't have to ultimately. You know
I totally did.
Yeah. And it's a very, whatever it is, a very, people get very sensitive about this subject.
Yeah, they do.
For some reason, I don't really get it, but that's just the way that I was raised. I just said I was going to do everything the opposite. Yeah. Literally everything the opposite.
Yeah. And aren't you happy for it?
Yeah. Oh,
I'm so happy. I feel so good about my relationship with my kids. And it makes me feel really bad for my mom because she's not capable.
Yeah.
She's has some similar stuff in her past that your mom did. Yeah. And it broke her. Like she's broken. And I understand that she doesn't have the self-awareness or the drive or whatever it is to try and make herself more whole so she can be happy. Not even so she can be with me, just so she can be happy herself and her own person. It really breaks my heart. And I look around at my family and I think, boy, she's really missed out. And that's a shame.
Well, she has 7 other families.
No kids.
Everybody,
no kids.
Wow.
Everybody she married has no kids.
Yeah.
I don't think she should have had kids. I think she had one, and I think that was good. I always worry if I had a sibling, I don't think they would have made it. Like, is your sister like you?
So my sister inspired me in a lot of ways. My sister was very funny,
awesome.
wanted to do stand up when she was a kid.
She did?
Yeah, but she was painfully shy. And she used to do this thing called
Is she older?
Yeah, 2 years older than me. And I looked up to her so much, right? So she did this thing called the Jenny Poo Show, which was like her and her friend Doug, who were like they became pen pals. I guess he moved to Jersey and we lived in, upstate New York. And they would send each other like essentially the precursor to what podcasts were, is they would like record on like a little recorder and they'd do sketches and they'd send them to each other and then mix them together. And it was like, I just watched this and I thought it was so cool. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I didn't realize like how much that ended up affecting who I am now, because I do stand up. I mean, we used to watch stand up obsessively as kids in the house, Def Comedy Jam, all like urban stuff, Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence. And because that's what we connected with. We were just like poor kids who, through comedy, especially in like the black and the urban comedy circuit, I mean, that's what people connected with. Being poor, being on welfare, not having the lights on, your mom beats the shit out of you. That's what they joked about.
Yeah.
And that darkness is what I connected with.
Sure.
You can relate. That's what comedy was to me. It was like a way that you can take something that's really ugly and dark and you put it through this little mental process and you spit it out as something that everyone can relate to. And it's something that's really funny.
Yeah.
Like what an amazing thing. That's when you talk about Legion of Skanks, Gas Digital, all the things that I do with, people think we're edgelords for the sake of being edgelords. That's not it at all. I can't get up for something that doesn't have a little bit of edginess to it.
Right.
That's just the foundation of who I am.
Right.
That's what makes me laugh. It's not saying that, like, look, Nate Bargatze's squeaky clean. I love him. He's brilliant. Brian Regan, hilarious. I watch stand-up with my son now, and he only watches, squeaky clean comedy.
Yeah.
I've showed him a couple of my bits because he really wants to see my stuff, you know? But he's a young kid. He's not really ready for that type of content yet. And, but yeah, that's sort of like painted who I am as a comic. It was just sort of like growing up in that environment and then seeing it. And then I moved to New York City when I was 19. I moved to New York City like a week before 9/11. And I was selling comedy club tickets on the street. Right. And that was my job, right? Yeah. I answered an ad in the newspaper. That's how I got into the stand-up comedy world. I was just promoting for comedy clubs. 9/11 happened. And that was my job. So a week later, we were out there selling comedy club tickets again. And I just watched everyone flock to the comedy clubs. New York had an attitude of like, we're New York strong. Fuck you. The terrorists aren't going to win. Right. So everyone took a day off of work. But then the next day, by Thursday, everyone was like, fuck that. We're going back to work. Like, that was the attitude. It was it was a very proud time to be a New Yorker. And I remember just being in the comedy clubs before I'd ever done stand-up, this is just as a promoter, a young kid, and then just seeing all of these comics. Every comic was making jokes about 9/11 in New York City a week after it happened. And I watched everyone laugh. People had family members that were missing still, and they were sitting in a comedy club because that's all you could do. And these things are, in my opinion, that's the value of comedy. This is the social value, and I think that it sometimes gets lost. It's not just dirty words for the sake of saying dirty words. It's trying to find something funny in this like really dark subject matter that shouldn't be funny. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, that why would you not want to draw the positivity out of something?
I totally agree with you. I think comics get so much shit when they shouldn't, because you're supposed to have your audience go to their limit, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you bring them to their limit if you don't push the limits, right? Yep. If you don't say shit that makes you go, sometimes.
And sometimes you step over the line, you fuck up and you go, oh shit. But that's it. You go, all right, well, how...
But how do you know where the line is if you don't try?
Exactly.
You can't.
And that's when you talk about cancel culture, and I don't want to turn it into a cancel culture conversation, but that's ultimately really what it is. The spirit of cancel culture is making people question how close they can get to that line, right? Mm-hmm. And making people be afraid and making people go, you know what? Keep that fucking line way over there. I'm going to stay in this much safer area. Mm-hmm. And I think that forget just comedy, just in terms of art, like you have to experiment, you have to try new things without being judged.
Mm-hmm.
And because we live in a social media society, everyone's got cameras, everything is just being watched and collected.
Yeah.
I think everyone's just paranoid. They're like, dude, I don't want to lose what I have. I don't want to misspeak or say something stupid or say something. People can make mistakes. People can say dumb things. People can say stuff that's not funny. People can say offensive things. People could change. The person I am today, who I am from 10 years ago, it's a very, very different person. I'm a father. I'm a business owner. I have a lot of things going on just in terms of my own values, how I carry myself. I don't do drugs anymore. I did a lot of drugs. You know what I'm saying? I just don't do them anymore. It's not a moral objection. I'm not judging you for doing them. That's just, I've truly changed as a person. But it's all blurred because I've been doing podcasts for almost 15 years. And you just watch that. You watch the progression. You can literally just watch me change as a human being. And I think for the fans, it's amazing. And they get to go like, oh, wow, I get to watch this guy develop as a human.
Yeah.
For people who aren't fans, they go, oh, that guy, this is the same idiot from 10 years ago that tried to fist fight a guy at a comedy club. And that's just on video, or he said he made this joke and it bombed and it fucking, So, it's a weird thing to be in, in entertainment. I feel like there's just a ton of fear, and it all does come back to parenting because like I have that fear for my son. Like my son knows me as me, right? My son probably knows I would say the truest version of who I am, like deep down, who I want to be, in every sense. Cause he's like almost like a moral guiding light. Like I would never fuck up in front of him, or at the very least, I really tried not to, And, I think that, sorry, I lost my train of thought on that.
You really love being a dad.
I love being a dad. Yeah, I really do.
So fulfilling, isn't it?
It is. It's the best.
It's so fun.
It really is.
I love it too. And I never thought I'd be a parent. My dad's an amazing dad. He was awesome. But I just thought, I'm just not sure I got the skills for this shit. And once I got into parenting my kids, I am really good at it, I think. And I enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
That relationship is so fulfilling with your kids. It's like no
Oh, that's
other.
what I'm sorry. I remember what I was saying now. I remember the point I was making. Oh, it's just that like I have a massive fear. Like he's going to go online and see a very different version of me than he knows.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He knows, and it's like this is something that goes.
Well, how do you talk to him about that? How do you get ahead of that?
So the conversations I have now is I tell him I do adult comedy, and I say words that you're not supposed to say on television, and that we try to be funny with them, and that's the whole point of it. Right. He's seen a few jokes of mine, especially the ones about him. I have certain, they're not clean, but like it's just me cursing. Who cares, right?
We called them daddy words.
Yeah, exactly.
Only daddy can say those words.
So. That's sort of how I get ahead of it. I talked about this on Bert's podcast as well. And I talk about this in my act, but like there's a video of me pretending to blow Robert Kelly.
Oh my God.
And Max, his son, and my son are best friends. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's a dildo hanging out of Bobby Kelly's pants.
Oh my God.
And the context is we're going to have a blowjob competition between me and this transgendered porn star named Bailey J.
Yeah.
In this live podcast, right?
Yeah.
And I bought this dildo and it was so realistic looking, right? And without thinking the way the internet was going to work, right?
Yeah.
So I go first and I'm like, I'm going to fucking win this blowjob competition. I get on my knees and I'm sucking this dick.
Oh my God.
Like you want to get your dick sucked.
Oh my God.
Okay. Like
golf ball through him at water hose. What you
I'm
say?
giving it to him, right?
All right.
Crowd's fucking losing their minds. Like, I'm fucking on cloud 9, dude. I'm like, I'm going to win this blowjob competition. Transgender porn star goes up to the microphone. She goes, yeah, I forfeit. He wins. She doesn't even do it.
That's
doesn't even do it. So now I'm like, oh, haha. But Internet Trolls just clipped out the 30 seconds.
Oh my God.
It literally looks like me getting on my knees, spitting on a dick, looking in Robert's eyes, and just sucking his dick, end scene. That's that.
That's it.
And that's just out, right?
Oh
that's just out there.
God.
There's no context of a podcast,
Right.
dildo, nothing.
Right.
So that is one of my biggest fears in my life, is Max Kelly and my son being on the internet together and finding their fathers filleting each other.
Oh my God.
So I talk about this in my act, but it's like I have to get ahead of it. I have to sit him down on his 12th birthday, like, James, I got to show you something.
Right? Now, let me show you this and let me explain it to you.
I have to explain. Well,
Uncle Bobby and I do not have a relationship. That's really funny.
And I think, I mean, it's just, I just want my son to be disappointed. You know what I'm saying? And my son is his mother is very, super liberal, very, I would say woke, she's raising him that way. And I'm not, but I'm also not political. I'm not like the anti-woke,
Yeah.
warrior. Like I'm not the free
Yeah.
speech fuck. I don't give a shit. Like I'm, you know, I'm not an activist. That's just not who I am.
Yeah.
You know, I want to just do my shit, make some cash, be funny. You know, I don't
Right.
vote. I don't know enough about what's going on in the political landscape to cast a legit vote. It would
Right.
be a blind vote if I voted, right?
Right,
So
right.
why would I do that? In
Right.
my opinion, I think it's most people should feel
Sounds
that
like
way.
you think it's irresponsible for you to vote.
I do.
Yeah.
I think it's irresponsible for most people to vote.
Yeah.
I think we buy what they sell us. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And I just have that fear that my son's gonna like just be on the internet one day and be like, Dad, what the fuck are you saying? Like
Yeah.
you're doing and saying these things that are like, you know, and I don't know. And I like to think that my son's just funny and is always gonna think it's hilarious, and it seems that he is, but forget being canceled, forget any of the other stuff. I don't want my kid to be fucking disappointed in me for, you know, just saying dumb shit to be funny. And you know, even now, like if you hear like I was listening to an audiobook, and I forget what the book was, but they were just talking about maybe it was Abraham Lincoln, and they were talking about something during like slavery times, and the narrator in the book used the N-word in a very matter-of-fact way, like it was part of the writing, right? It was like
he was just reading.
I remember how loud it sounded.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, because you don't hear it in media, right?
No.
And the Legion of Skanks and the podcast we do, we use words like we'll just throw shit out to be funny.
Yeah.
And it's in that context, it seems very, very funny, but in the real world context where we never get that, right? You just don't hear that anymore, and it just doesn't happen. It's just it's deafening. It's so out there. It's the
only thing you can hear.
And my son has never heard me say anything racist, sexist, like, you know, and I just don't want that to blow his fucking eardrums out.
Right.
When he hears, you know, I hope he understands the context that my dad's always just trying to be funny and always just trying to make people laugh. It's never about hurting people's feelings.
Right.
I'd like to think that, you know.
This week's Wife of the Party is sponsored by BetterHelp. I don't know about you, but I just really don't and have never had all the answers to life. So from a really young age, I started going to therapy. And therapy has been imperative, essential, really important to my growth, happiness, mental health, physical health, I'd even say. I am a huge proponent of therapy. And therapy doesn't have to be because you're off in a ditch and in a terrible place. Therapy can be because, you know, you're not happy with your current position in life and you want some change and you don't know how. Happy can be, I want to maximize my relationship with my best friend, my mother-in-law, my husband, and I don't know how. I'm not communicating well with people and I don't know why. I'm feeling feelings that I don't understand. All of these things are reason to go to therapy, not to mention the things we all know about anxiety, depression. Therapy changed my life personally. I definitely would not be the person I am today without it because I would not have had clarity for what was keeping me from moving forward in life. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. So if you are thinking therapy might be something you're interested in, BetterHelp makes therapy so easy because it's right in your home. It's on your computer, your tablet, your phone. It's online. They will place you after a short questionnaire with a therapist based on what your needs are at that moment. And you know what? If you don't like the therapist they place you with, you can change. And there's no fee for that. And I mean, how awesome is that? Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/wife today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/wife to get 10% off your first month. This show is sponsored by Docatot. Okay, people. Docatot has come out with a bassinet. This bassinet is incredible because it is made of cardboard. Hello, cardboard that has a print on the side. So it's really pretty. But what does that matter? What does that mean? Cardboard is light. Cardboard is portable. You can move it from room to room. You can move it from house to house easily. It's lightweight. It's recyclable. And kids are in bassinets for like 1 minute. I mean, you need a bassinet for a kid for just such a short period of time. And you know, I worked from home when I had kids, and a bassinet that I could my bassinet was my crib, which was a huge piece of furniture. If I'd had a bassinet I could move from room to room while I was working, that would have been amazing. If you want to go on a family vacation, You can put the Docatot bassinet in the back of your car, pop it up, and you got a bassinet. I mean, and it's adorable and cute, and it's recyclable. I mean, come on. If you're looking for a gift, if you're having a baby, if you're a grandma and you want your grandkid to come over and safely sleep at your house for a night to give your kid and their spouse a break, this Docatot bassinet is the solution for so many things. I can't even believe that no one's come up with this before, but this Docatot bassinet is incredible. It's called the Kind Bassinet. Definitely check it out. Babies, mamas, and gift givers, this is the best brand you can buy for your precious child and mom you love most. For a limited time, get 15% off at Docatot.com with the code WIFE. That's 15% off with the code WIFE at Docatot.com. That's DOCKATOT, Docatot.com. Parenting is hard, but Docatot makes it easier. Well, I don't know how it is with boys, but I can tell you how it is with girls with their dad being a comic. Sometimes it's hard. Not till they got to be probably 12, 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And at that age, their awareness of who their dad was in the context of the world started happening. You know, to them, just like you, he was just dad. He did drop off pickup. The cool thing about having a stand up for a dad is that he's not a 9-to-5er. You know, when he was home, he was drop off pickup, made lunch boxes, went to softball practice, was fully plugged in. That was a deal he and I made in the beginning. Was like, I can get on this ride with you, but when you're home, I need you to plug into your kids and be for your kids. And then when you go on the road, do your business, do whatever. That's fine. If you plug in when you're home, then when you're gone, you're actually still plugged in because the kids will feel the effect of you being there for 48 hours and really being there. Like bath time, bedtime, he did all of it, especially when they were young. And I was working full time. At a certain point, I had like accumulated more apartment buildings. So I had to get a nanny, but we couldn't really afford her. So as soon as he hit the ground, I sent her home, and he was the nanny, you know, so he took him to the grocery store and cooked dinner and did all that shit. But
it kind of feels that way for me because I co-parent with my son's mother and we split custody. So it's, you know, like when I'm home, I'm like, I don't have anybody else. It's just me. I don't even have somebody else to like share the responsibility with.
And that really puts deposits in the bank, right? You're putting deposits in the bank that you can withdraw from, like that when you lose your patience with them that one time at the museum. You got so many deposits, that one withdrawal doesn't make a blip.
Of course.
But when they got to be teenagers, you know, the nature of a teenager is that they're super self-centered, right? And everything affects them, and it's all about them. And that's what a teenager looks like. That's what we were when we were teenagers.
Right.
So the way their dad was in the world started affecting them differently.
Right.
When they hit like...
How so? What do you mean?
12, well, they were aware that he talked about me sexually in his stand-up, and that was weird because I'm just mom. And they were aware that they talked about them. He talked about them in ways that, you know, he always...
That started bothering them?
Yes.
Yeah.
It did.
Because my son loves it now. He hears the bits about him.
Oh,
and they're cute for the most part. There's really nothing... I call him a pussy in one bit, but he thinks it's so funny.
Yeah.
He was like, oh.
And maybe it's different for boys. Maybe it's for boys when he gets a teenager, he'll go, yuck, yuck, that's the funniest thing ever. My girls are not into it right now.
Yeah, they're not
They are not into it at all.
Dad, don't fucking talk about me.
They're not.
That's my business.
Like this last special we did, Isla needed to watch it.
Before you could put it out?
Yeah.
Wow.
And she had one joke where she was like, nope.
And did they take it out?
We took it out.
No way.
We did.
You can't tell the context of the joke?
I guess I can. This was actually a true story, but this joke was not true. Right. So we went to a choir concert. Georgia was hardcore into like show choir and all this choir in middle school. And they were auctioning off, the show in the beginning of his joke. You see why I'm not a stand-up? In the beginning of his joke, he's talking about how this is a 4-hour choir concert. What the fuck are we doing here? Isla and I are stuck like in the Hurt Locker. And Isla leans over to me and goes, where's the school shooter when you need one? And it's big laugh, huge laugh when we were shooting the special. Because obviously, who wants to sit through a 4-hour fucking... Nobody wants to sit through that. It was funny in the moment. Isla saw it and went, nope. I do not want to say that. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I would never say that. That's not cool. So it didn't really affect the joke.
I understand her perspective
Yeah.
as like a comic and a dad. Like, shut
It
up.
just killed
Who
Bert.
cares?
It killed him. He did not want to take it out. He kept going, but what if I have this one soundbite where I just say, fuck you. She didn't say that. I wrote that joke. And she was like, nope. And he was like, well, what if? He just kept trying to talk her into it. And it's the only time ever she's been immovable. And I was like, okay, we cut that one thing out and it didn't really affect the rhythm of the joke. It didn't really affect anything.
Of course.
If you didn't know it was there, you would never have known it was there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
that was
sure.
the one time.
Yeah, I mean, my son, he really likes entertaining as well. Like,
okay.
He's in musical theater and
That's awesome.
he sings piano, he does jujitsu, he's like very, very well rounded, baseball, all that. And I think he wants to do stand up at one point. At this point, he says that he wants to. We did a roast for me at Skankfest, and we sat down with him and wrote a few jokes, and he recorded a little video of him roasting me. It was, and then I showed him, the video of, a couple thousand people reacting to him. I mean, he was just like on cloud nine.
Aww.
Loves it. He looks up to me in, a lot of ways. He started a podcast with Max Kelly. We don't put it out. He just did it for themselves.
That's so cute.
Yeah, it's called James to the Max. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And then so they do a different subject. So like it'll be coffee to the max, and that'll be they're talking about coffee on that episode, and that's that.
Why won't they put it out?
I'm very protective.
Yeah.
My fan base are they're in a pro, and I don't want them to send Max and James a video of me sucking Bobby Kelly's dick. So I'm gonna really just keep him off the internet for as long as possible.
Good call.
Yeah, he's not an internet kid. He just got a pad for his birthday a month ago. He's on it a little bit. He's just not that kid. He's not a screen time kid.
Yeah.
He likes to create, and we've always encouraged it. So, he just doesn't, I don't even think he knows how to really Google something.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That time will come.
Of course.
Like it or not.
Oh yeah, I know it.
It shows up. 5th grade. Our kids got
He's
a
in
phone.
4th now.
Yeah. Our kids got a phone when they were going to middle school, because they went to a middle school with like 1,800 kids.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need you actually to have a phone.
Yeah.
I need to be able to find you.
We went to Italy. I got my phone, went to Italy this past year. We do a father-son trip every year.
Aww.
Just me and him somewhere new every year. Somewhere we haven't been. Actually, I'm doing the trip with Bobby Kelly and Max this year. We're doing a double father-son trip to Costa Rica. We're renting like a little place in the forest, and it's gonna be really, really cool. But we're going to Italy, and I was like, if this kid gets lost, he's not gonna have a phone. That's fucking crazy. He can't you're not gonna be able to communicate with anyone. So I started getting paranoid. And then I want him to be able to take pictures.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of like that experience, a little bit of independence.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just, he never has a phone on him, never is, texting, never is doing any of the stuff that you're sort of worried about kids doing.
Yeah. It's good.
But even like at restaurants, you see kids just like on the pad the whole time. It's crazy to me. Like, I would never, even like my niece, she's that kid. My sister will just give my niece the pad. When we go out to eat, I'm like, no, you're not on a pad. We're having a conversation.
Yeah. I think it's causing a lot of depression for kids.
A ton.
Anxiety.
It's also disassociation.
Yes.
People aren't making eye contact.
Completely.
My son, he's an only child as well, and he was raised around a lot of adults. So he'll just have a conversation. I mean, my son will take an 8-hour car ride and no pad, no nothing. He'll just talk the whole time.
Right.
On a flight, like he'll sit down for dinner and you'll just have a real conversation about life.
Right.
There's no like boredom. I think it's a major advantage moving forward for kids. The later you get kids hooked onto pads, and I know it's easy. It's easy just to give them a pad, and once again, I think I'm lucky. It's not my kid he didn't freak out for those things. I might have given in a little bit earlier if that was like he was really into it,
Right. Or some kids, kids are so different. I have 2 very different kids. Georgia, believe it or not, is very, very similar to Bert, and Isla is a super hybrid. She's a little bit of both of us, but you have to parent them so differently, and I see parents just not want to deal with it and just give the kid the iPad. And I think, boy, you are just racking up debt, man. At a certain point, you're going to have to pay that bill, because when they're a teenager, you can't give them an iPad anymore.
Well, everyone's
and they're not listening to you.
Eyes are going. All these kids have to wear glasses now.
Yes.
And then also just sort of like, there's this like weird, like, social media is like, it's just a really evil fucking thing. Like it really genuinely is like, it's just sort of like it's designed that, it's this fake thing that we're like coming together and communicating with each other, but it's all like these algorithms and these super smart people that are just sort of like making it feel that way, but it's all just about collecting our information and selling us shit. And you were participating actively in this weird experiment about, a handful of people becoming bazillionaires.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are we having our kids opt in for that? You're allowing your kid for what? So they can disassociate, so they can't actually have people skills, so they can't make eye contact, they can't go in for a job interview. Look, the technology is getting more intuitive. The computers will get easier to use. Eventually, it'll just be a thought, and you can look something up on Google, right? So I'm not worried about my son not being in tune with technology.
No,
it's going to get. It's
no
impossible.
reason to. Yeah.
What I'm worried about him is him not being able to fall in love or not be able to feel a true human connection.
Yeah.
Or any of those other things that I think that people are going to have a real hard time with. Just having real self-value. Like everyone's. Every girl that I know, they pull out a face app and like they change their faces.
The filter,
Not even just a filter. There's whole apps that fucking change the face.
Oh my God.
And they're all using it. These girls are out there. It's a wild thing. And you go, it's like, none of it's real.
None of it's real.
None of it's real. And then you go to the supermarket, it's like, there's a guy behind the counter and he's just trying to sell you an orange and you just want an orange, you give him $1 and that's kind of real.
Yeah.
Whatever his fucking, like, he's not using an app to make his face look better. He's not letting you know his political beliefs. He's not letting you know what,
right.
You're just living. And that's the way real life is. And the more we incorporate technology into real life, the more we are going to start turning into, the culture war and people fighting and arguing. And I don't want to live there. I
don't either. It makes everything extrinsic, right? Outside yourself. It makes everything extrinsic when really true value, self-value.
Thank you for telling me what extrinsic means, because I didn't know. Outside yourself.
Intrinsic means it's something that you've built inside. Like self-esteem, real self-esteem is built from achievement in like what you're talking about by setting a goal and achieving it. I don't mean by making $1 million. I mean by saying I'm going to brush my teeth every day this week and doing it. Whatever the small achievement is, that's how you build intrinsic value. And intrinsic value is what's healthy.
Well, and you're right? Because you have there's these little fake like dopamine.
That's extrinsic. There's something outside.
But it's not even real. You go like, they don't have to accomplish anything.
No.
In order to feel great. When I was a kid, in order to feel great, you had to be great. Go do something fucking great, And it's almost like an old hack thing to say. It's like, oh, everyone gets a participation trophy now. It's not a participation trophy. Everyone gets to feel great based off of this whole online thing. Like everyone's eating at the best restaurants and they have the best clothes and they look great and every angle is great. But everyone's falling apart. Nobody that I know like 4 people who are happy, right? Nobody that I know is actually happy, right? It's just sort of this thing. And then everyone sort of walks around going like, whoa, everyone's so happy. I'm not, and then they get further depressed because they're like, I don't have this shit. But nobody really got any of this shit.
No, it's all fake.
Just Bert and Nate Bargatze, the only people that I know that are actually happy.
I am happy. And guess what? I'm almost never on social media.
Yeah.
I much rather have a conversation with a person about real shit than scroll social media. Now, I do look at social media because it's one of the ways I connect with my kids is we look at stupid pet videos on Instagram. And
on Reels?
Now that I do.
That. Yeah, of course.
Because we'll like, look at that cat do the stupid thing. And then we'll laugh with each other.
Yeah.
But I think having teenagers and watching them go through high school, it is such a different experience than when I was in high school that it makes me worried a little bit.
Right.
Like I feel like my kids are scared of boys. Like they don't know how to interact with boys because woke culture has confused everybody. And this equality that's no longer equality has confused everybody. So boys don't know how to act with girls. They don't know, do I open the car door for her or is she going to be offended by that?
Right.
What do I do? I have no idea. Do I ask her out or does she ask me out? Who pays when we go out? If I pay, is she going to be offended? Or if we're supposed to split it? What are we supposed to do?
I'm just a traditionalist. I just teach my son like it's 1954.
Well, but see, that's the problem is that I think there's nothing wrong
with tradition.
With being treasured as a woman.
Of course.
With being appreciated and treasured. And that's one way of expressing it. Obviously, someone saying you don't know what you're talking about because you're a woman is not cool.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't have a problem with someone opening a door for me. He's not saying you're not capable of opening a door. He's being considerate.
It's being
But the girls these days are taught something a little different.
Yeah.
I feel like in my observation.
The values are like consciously being changed, you know, for almost, I almost feel like if it's not broken, don't fix it. Right. Like, I don't think that was the problem. Men being gentlemen to women is not the problem.
I think some of that is the message.
Yeah. That they take from it.
That they take from it. Not that was the problem, but that was the message.
Yeah.
And so, I watch all these little teenagers come in and out of our house and go in and out of dances, and like they just go with friends. No one goes with a date. And I was like, do you know how fun it was to wonder who was going to ask you to the date and be so excited? And then when that person asks you, you get so dressed up and excited to go. And now they're like wearing Converse tennis shoes and, you know, like oversized clothes to the prom.
Like, whatever. Gender is just a social construct.
And I go, that's great. Yeah. Of course, everybody should be whoever they are. But I'm really bummed that they don't get to experience some of the things that were, I guess, like you said, traditional.
Yeah.
That helps you form who you are as a person.
Yeah.
It really does help you form to be excited that someone's going to ask you out and to wait.
Also to take that chance. Like, you know,
exactly.
You learn a big lesson there,
yes.
right? Where you go like, well, rejection doesn't kill you, right?
Yes.
You have to, like, my son will eventually like a girl, ask her to dance. She might reject him. She might say yes. Those are like defining moments sometimes 100%. In a very, very big way. And it's not just about love. It's about anything. I'll tell you a quick story about just sort of like, it kind of reminded me of like defining moments, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd like to think that I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always, since I was a young kid, I mean, I was always the kid with the iced tea stand, lemonade stand, you know, when it snowed, shoveling people's driveways. I was poor. That's how I made money. That's how I made money for candy and you know, things like that. And I'm talking about since I was 7. Like, as soon as I could pick up a shovel and put, you know, I was out there shoveling snow.
Yeah.
I would sell candy door to door. I'd always like win those contests. I was always the kid who would do that. So I've had it in me since I was a kid. I had my first actual job when I was 11, and I've never not worked since. Right. And it's something that I think is, you know, I think having an entrepreneurial spirit and having that mindset, I think it could help anybody in, you know, massive ways throughout their life. So I just moved to the suburbs, moved from New York City during the pandemic. I moved to the suburbs to a little house. And it was October. And I remember my kids, or my son and my niece, they were like, oh, we want to do a lemonade stand or an iced tea stand. I was like, it's a little too late. I was like, it's October. I was like, why don't we get hot apple cider? All right, and we'll get some apple cider donuts. And you guys can do a hot apple cider stand out here. And they were so pumped about it. We went to the store. I was like, look, this is what your budget is. You got $20, you know, and this is like, you got to pay back the budget, and that's your profit, right?
Yeah.
I was just trying to teach them a little lesson.
Yeah.
And they go out for the first like maybe 45 minutes, and it's a ghost town. Nobody's out there.
Yeah.
Nobody. And you can just see them sort of like losing interest.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Bianca, my niece, she's suggesting them go play something.
Yeah.
My son's kind of like bummed out, right? And I was like, fuck, I can't have this moment be this. I can't have them fail. The first time they try to do something where they try to make some money, try to create a business, I was like, they have to fucking succeed at this, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Or this could really set them off on a trajectory for failure for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, right?
It was really important to me.
Yeah.
So I remember I just went around the corner. I just saw some woman getting into a car. I was like, miss, take this $2. Please go buy some hot apple cider from these kids. And she thought it was adorable. She was like, oh, keep your money. And she went. And then it was a moment they bought it, and these kids, like, they lit up.
Yeah.
They were like, wow. And they got the $2, and then it was on. Then they were like going to the corner, yelling at people to come over. And I did it secretly. They didn't know I went to this woman.
Yeah,
they saw that she just came up, and they were just so inspired. They were like calling cars over. They ended up selling like $50 worth of hot apple cider. They made a profit. They went to the store. They got to spend their money, split it. It was such a cool experience.
That's
really cool experience. But, you know, I think you have to, you know, as a parent, it's our responsibility to sort of make sure that those things happen. It just kind of reminded me of you saying, like, going to the dance and just not, you know, these moments where like, you know, a boy asks a girl to dance, like, it's this moment. It's like, well, am I going to be the kid who's afraid to ask a girl to dance from now on? Or am I going to be the kid who says, you know what, I have all the confidence in the world because I nailed that.
Yeah.
And you have to let these kids figure it out. And I think you're not giving the kids a chance to figure any of this stuff out.
That's right.
These real world tangible things.
Yes.
I feel like they have almost none of that anymore. You know?
I do too. Everything's about staying safe. And I wonder how much of that is from the pandemic and how much that messaging of we have to stay safe, we have to stay inside, let's keep a mask on.
I was a lunatic during the pandemic.
You were? What do you mean?
I got vaccinated because I had to do a gig in England and I had to. But I was like, day one, I was like, I don't really buy it. I'm not one of these guys. Believe me, I'm not. It didn't become my identity.
Right.
I just never bought it.
Yeah.
And I was very clear with my son, my family.
Even with everybody in New York dying, you still didn't buy it?
No, it never really registered to me that it was was what it said it was. It always seemed like it was being blown out of proportion, that it was, and that was just sort of my attitude with it. So I think my son, and even my son's mother, very quickly started going like, yeah, this is a little bit crazy. I was like, we're healthy. Everyone in my family exercises. Everyone's, we just didn't need to be locked up, locked in. We didn't need to, in my opinion, I'm sure there's a big debate about a lot of it, but the point is that I just never really instilled that fear in him. He didn't have a household where it was like, oh my God, like everyone's going to die.
Well, we weren't like that in our house.
Yeah.
We weren't like that in our house. I went out and went to the grocery store. We did shit like that. We had people that we kept in our bubble.
Yeah.
We saw other families and stuff, but school's locked down. You're online learning.
Yeah.
I mean, when we went back to school in California, you had to test constantly, mask all the time. Yep. Desks far apart. So the way that society was presented,
and California was one of the worst places to be living during the pandemic. I moved from New York City, which is also one of the worst places, to New Jersey, which was like one of the best places. Like New Jersey was like, they really did it in a way where they just tried to not make life, and it wasn't like Florida where they were having parties.
Right.
But it
was reasonable.
I thought it was very reasonable the way that New Jersey, their response to it, because you have to be responsible. But I think it did affect them,
I think what it did in my house was it took 2 years. Those 2 years are pretty important. It was like my daughter's 8th and 9th grade year of school. 8th grade, you're like the king of the school.
Yeah.
She spent 8th grade at home with me learning history, which was not fucking fun for her or me. And then 9th grade, it's a brand new school. She missed those whole 2 really important years. And then by the time she hit sophomore year, I know that kids in high school have like a pattern of behavior. Is very trackable what girls at least do in high school. At freshman year, they start gathering a lot of friends, big friend group. And then as they get into sophomore year, they start weeding through those friends and kind of getting down to 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Well, all that started sophomore year. So everything was kind of a year behind socially.
Yeah.
And so I just see these kids staying really safe and staying very safe in their like emotional space.
Yeah.
And I just keep going, there's just nothing to be learned from that.
Yeah.
You can't grow from that. Being safe means you're going to be the same person when you're 40 that you are now. And that's so boring.
Yeah.
Isn't it really interesting to...
Well, we learn from failure, right? You fall down, you get back up, you walk a little bit straighter. And I think that if everyone's safe and they're never falling down, they're never going to learn how to walk straight.
Learn. You just miss out on so much if you don't do that kind of shit. Make an ass of yourself from time to time.
Yep.
Because then I don't know, it just makes you such a richer person.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry about the kids these days. As I see them, I go, just nobody's. Georgia has one friend that is very willing to make an ass of herself. And I keep going, that's the way you go.
Yeah.
Go the way of the daisy. I love Daisy.
This is where, the cream rise to the top, and I'm raising my son to be fucking elite. I'm raising him to be a great person and to do great things,
That's awesome.
That's the way, so I look at it as like, where all these other kids are that it's an opportunity for my son to thrive and grow and to stand out amongst everybody else. And he really does. Like, I'm going to bring my son out to California when you're going to fucking love this kid. He's like,
I'm sure I will.
I mean, he's so personable. He just did a play. He did Shrek the musical, like the local town production. Yep. And the age group was 9 to 14. He was 9 at the time. He got the role of Donkey. He's the youngest kid in the production, the funniest role, like such an adorable, sweet, personable kid, like very big personality, but like so polite, like just doesn't have a rude bone in his body.
That's awesome.
Good kid, really good kid.
That's so great. He's 4th grade?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Middle school.
Coming up next year, yeah. They start in 5th grade in his school district.
Oh, they do?
Mm-hmm.
Fifth grade. Is it 5th, 6th, 7th?
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th.
8th, all 4. Middle school's a different ball game.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It can be dicey.
Yeah, he's worried about bullies. He keeps on mentioning it. But I was like, James, you've been doing jujitsu for years. You've been boxing and doing Muay Thai for years. Like he's such a sweet. He doesn't realize that like
he has power.
This kid can drop a hammer. He can really punch. He knows jujitsu. He's really good at jujitsu. But he just doesn't have he's not an aggressive kid. He's just very, very sweet.
All
So
right.
I'm hoping that if it ever comes down to it, that just like kicks in and he knows that he can take care of himself. But I mean, I was bullied relentlessly as a kid. I just got
Yeah.
into fights every day. Like
Ugh.
but we're raising our kids in a much different,
I don't know. My kids' middle school was pretty rough.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, they went to public middle school. My kids went to public school till high school. High school, they went to private, all girls Catholic. But yeah, their middle school was pretty rough. There was a lot of fights, a lot of drugs in their middle school.
Really?
Kids having sex on campus.
That's crazy.
Now, we didn't put them there because of that. It actually, at the same time, it's such a large, it was 1,800 students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It had really great educational programs and was a really great school, as well as having all this other stuff going. But Georgia tells me all the time that she thinks she learned more in middle school about life in general than any other time in her life. Was she watched boys fighting and girls fighting and all this riffraff and going, yeah, I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
Like, I'll pass on that.
I guess when there was kids already smoking weed and having sex in the 8th grade.
Oh, they were when I was in school.
When I was in school, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I wasn't yet. I didn't start doing any of that stuff till way later.
I was 9th grade. I waited
I didn't smoke weed till I was a senior year in high school.
Oh,
I didn't have sex until I was 16 years old. I wasn't, but I remember the kids who like did that. There was just kids who like go to the bathroom and they'd come out, their eyes would be all red.
Yep.
The hallway would smell of weed. Be like, I know exactly who it was.
Yep.
I remember a couple kids getting pulled out of class for that. I remember one of the kids in the 8th grade had sex with one of the other kids' moms.
What?
Like crazy.
With a mom?
Yeah, with a mom, yeah.
Oh, that poor mom. She
Yeah.
was a disaster, huh?
Yeah, she was a nightmare.
Oh,
well, I feel
jeez.
bad because her daughter was in our, everyone had to
How do you deal with that as a kid,
that's
right?
brutal.
That sucks.
Yeah,
Oh, man, that would be hard.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job as a dad. You should be really proud of
I'll
yourself.
say. I
It's
hope it all
super
turns out.
hard to come out of what you described.
Yeah.
You know, did you have any therapy or anything?
Yeah, I've gone to a bunch of therapy.
Have you?
Yeah. It's been hot and cold in therapy.
As it always
I
is,
think
yeah.
that I haven't really gone into a lot of what happened with my childhood in therapy, which in my opinion, I thought that's the whole point of therapy. Every time I talk to a therapist, they always keep it very surface.
Why?
I don't know, maybe because I'm giving off that energy. I don't know. Anytime they mention my mom, I break down crying, and then I'm like, "Oh, is this not a fucking buying sign, lady?"
Wait, they break down crying?
No, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. And you're like, all right, well, as a therapist, when you go like, all right, that's where we need to go.
Yeah,
They don't really go
100%.
there. Yeah.
That's really odd.
And luckily I've had comedy as a massive form of therapy. Just being able to, talk about the things. I'm very open. I don't really
Do
hide
you talk
anything.
about your mom in comedy?
Yeah.
In your comedy, you do?
Yeah. I've talked about my mom. I've talked about my dad. My dad was murdered when I was 4 years old.
What?
He was stabbed to death. Yeah.
What?
And my mom died when I was 22. She died of a drug overdose, but was dying of cancer. She just gave up on life.
Who murdered your dad?
My mom. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, hold on, what?
No, he got into a fight. He was a pimp. And he was outside of a strip club that he was working, he had girls that worked there, and he got into a fight with these two guys. He beat them up. They came back an hour later with a knife and they stabbed him.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You were 4?
Yeah. I was 4 years old.
That's hard.
Yeah. And just, I think,
So you knew your dad? Do you remember your
I
dad?
have a memory, a memory or two, very, very few.
Yeah.
Just flashes. But I don't think he was a good dude either, to be honest with you. I don't know that if he was in my life, I would have been better off. So, look, my son is my world. There was one sperm, one egg that had to meet. That's that.
And that's it.
Anything before that, I don't change a fucking blink of an eye. Nothing. Because it had to be that sperm, it had to be that egg, right? So I wouldn't change my mom's, what happened with her, my father, my childhood, my upbringing. It all brought me to where I'm at
That's
right now.
Man,
Simple as that.
Right.
It legitimately did. And, the things that made me stronger made me stronger. The things that made me weaker. But, that sperm had to beat that egg. Simple as that.
That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And who you are is who you're supposed to be. Even with all the pain and hurt and upset and all the stuff you went through just made you a better person. And it sounds to me like you've turned all of that abuse and physical, mental, emotional abuse into just positivity.
Yeah, for the most part, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's a couple Uber drivers that'll tell you differently, but
Well, I have my moments too where I get really angry and upset. And, If there's a fight or flight, I'm a fighter, and people wouldn't maybe think that about me, but it's definitely related to how I grew up, like to having to take care of myself and having to really be my own parent. And when shit happens, I have no problem being my own parent. And as part of the reason Bert and I work so well, I think, is because I don't really need anybody to take care of me.
Right.
I want to be with Bert, and I guess on some levels I need to be with Bert, but I don't really need much. I don't need anybody to deal with my shit, because no one dealt with my shit when I was a kid.
Right.
I did.
Yeah.
If I had to do something, I did it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. This podcast is sponsored by HelloFresh. I love HelloFresh. Okay. So I'm camping with the Girl Scouts this weekend, and across from me, I had a huge group. Across from me, there's a family of 4, and they opened their trunk. And guess what's in their trunk? A box of HelloFresh. They brought HelloFresh camping because guess what? Everything you need is in the box. They made HelloFresh burgers while they were camping. I was a little jealous, I have to say, because everything HelloFresh makes is amazing. But how about that? That's so amazing, right? They just brought it with them. You can also have it delivered if you're going to an Airbnb somewhere else out of town. Just have it redirected there. HelloFresh is amazing for so many reasons. All the ingredients you need for a wonderful, fresh, delicious recipe are included in the box. Easy to follow steps are in the box. It takes 20 to 30 minutes to make a fresh meal. HelloFresh has 40 weekly recipes to choose from for all your meal occasions and lifestyles. They have chef-crafted seasonal recipes. They have protein smart recipes. You can go protein. You can go vegetarian. You can do a one-pot meal. I mean, there are so many possibilities with HelloFresh. And the groceries, the grocery shopping is like 25% less than if you go to the grocery store, because you're only buying what you need. Sometimes you just need a cup of sugar and you got to buy a whole 5-pound bag. Well, that's not how it works with HelloFresh. They send you what you need, and that's all. So there's no waste. There's no buying too much of something. It's awesome. And for my kids, it exposed us to recipes I would never have come up with myself. So it just kind of broadened our palate. I love HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/wife60 and use code wife60 for 60% off plus free shipping. Go to HelloFresh.com/wife60 and use code wife60 for 60% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Do you have a woman now?
Yeah. I'm dating a girl who she actually lives here in LA.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she's a dancer, not a stripper.
Could be either one. Who cares?
She travels with a Latin recording artist. She's like, tours the world dancing.
Amazing.
And, super cool chick, really sweet. We actually just talked about her possibly moving to the East Coast, hopefully this summer. So, taking it step by step. You don't really know how it'll be until you live. I'm at a place now where it's I'm not going to I can't, it's kind of hard to casually date. It's like I can just casually date and have a few different chicks that I'm seeing or whatever, but I'm going to call somebody my girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
I can't really make it casual. I have a child, I have a career, I have a lot of stuff going on right now that it's are you going to fit into my life? Is that going to be, a part of my future? And how is that going to look,
Yeah.
So there's it's just a little bit, the energy that I have is a little bit different. So things are great. We're long distance right now. And it's we really long to see each other all the time. And it's when we see each other, it's super passionate. But you don't know until you're in the, living in the same city, living in the same household, how it will really turn out. So we're sort of at this place in our relationship. And we'll see. I think she's great. I'm really, really into her. But it's a little bit of a scary time. Just because you're what if she fucking moves to the East Coast and we hate each other?
Yeah. That would be scary.
It's a scary thing. Yeah, it's a big jump. But I told her if we do it, keep your apartment in LA, keep your car in LA, have your independence. We'll take it step by step and see where it goes. Because she's in a couple of years, she's going to want to probably start a family, get married, all that stuff. And I'm now mentally getting into my head. It's am I ready for round 2?
Yeah,
of
right.
Because it was, my son's 10 now. I thought it was sort of over, know, and Yeah, I mean, it's not too difficult to convince me to get you pregnant. I mean,
no problem.
She could probably
Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, she could probably convince me.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you're a great dad. You'd probably love having
that's the
more
other thing is like
kids.
I did want to have more kids. I had a lot of like regrets about me and my son's mother breaking up, the way it happened. Like in my head, I thought we would have probably ended up getting back together. When I moved out, it was supposed to be like a trial separation, and then we just never really came back together. We ended up being better co-parents and better friends outside of it. And then when you look at it, now I look at it, I was like, oh, we were so incompatible. We were just she didn't like the type of comedy I did. She hated this world. Like it just was not her thing at all. So it wasn't a good match. And she's a great parent, a great co-parent, a great person. But ultimately it's like, I was just young and just like, we were physically attracted to each other. And that was that. The girl that I'm dating now, like she's such a big fan of what I do, which is, it's such, we talked about it earlier, right? Just sort of having a support system, just having somebody that goes, I get what you do. I see what you do. I love it. I respect it. That's really, really, important.
It's essential for you.
I think so.
It's essential. You can't move forward if your partner is not on board.
Yeah, completely.
Right. I totally have always gotten Bert's comedy from the beginning. The first time I saw him at the Improv, he talks about this all the time. If we were just dating, he was like, I'm nervous to have you see me do stand-up because I'd never dated a comic before. I grew up watching comedy with my dad a lot. I watched more comedy than most girls probably did,
right? But
I had no aspirations of being in this world in any way, shape, or form of comedy at all. It's
also a world that you don't even know a way in.
No, well, I didn't.
Nobody knows comedians.
No,
like, it's a weird
I didn't
thing.
know. It's not like I was hanging out at the comedy clubs. You know, we went bowling.
How did you guys end up meeting?
We went bowling. I had a friend who had a friend who was Bert's roommate. So she invited Bert's roommate bowling, and he said, "Can I bring Bert?" So we were a big group of us bowling, like, I don't know, maybe 12 people. So we separated into couples and singles, and Bert and I were on the singles. And we were bowling, and we were having so much fun. At the end of the night, I knew his roommate. And I said, hey, give him my phone number.
Nice.
He's super fun. We'd have a good time. And I thought to myself, 2 weeks. I'll go out with him for like 2 weeks. We'll be friends forever.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks, that's it. Bert doesn't call me. So I call his roommate and I go, what the fuck, man? I'm a cute girl. We had so much fun. Why hasn't he called me? And he goes, ask him yourself. And hands the phone to Bert. And I go, hey, man, I'm a cute girl. Gave you my phone number. Why didn't you call me? And he goes, And I said, if you ask me out on a date, I'll say yes. So just ask me.
Yeah.
He goes, you want to go on a date? I said, yes. So he hangs the phone up and turns to his roommate and goes, she just wants me for my body. She just wants to fuck. And I was like, now knowing who I am, he was like, he showed up for the date and I was dressed for a date. And he was like, oh my God, he was a wreck.
Wow.
He didn't eat dinner.
No.
He couldn't tolerate his shoes, took his shoes off in the middle of dinner, couldn't deal with it. When dinner was over, he was like, you want to go get drinks at a bar? Yeah. Want to go get dessert after that? Want to go get a 6-pack? He wouldn't let the date end. He wouldn't let it end. And finally I was like, it's 2:00 in the morning, but bye.
Yeah.
Bye. He goes home, calls me the next morning, 9:00 in the morning. What are you doing tonight? Every single day from that day on, he called me at 9:00 in the morning. And still I was like, there's no way I'm getting involved with a comic. I'm going to be broke. There's no way I'm going to be working shit jobs my whole life. At the time, I was writing screenplays and I was doing really well. I'd already sold one that had been made, had 4 more that were optioned, had studios asking me to write for them.
That's cool.
And I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. No way. And then I was about 2 or 3 weeks of dating. I started going, I actually think this might be the right way. I've been dating the wrong guys. I've been dating guys that are just like pretty boring. And no wonder I'm cycling in and out of boyfriends.
Right.
I was always monogamous, but I was always like, yeah, so anyway, I guess we're doing the same shit again today. I'm done. I had to move on. And my dad told me a long time ago, he was like, you're not going to marry a regular person. You're just not. You're just not wired that way. You're going to marry someone who's really not normal. So just get ready. That's how you're wired. When he shows up, you'll be fine. And he was right. So yeah, after a little bit, I was like, oh no, I think this is the right direction. Had a full-blown panic attack because I was like, I can't be married to a comic. There's no fucking way. And my girlfriend came over and she was like, "Oh, honey, you're done. You're totally done. Just surrender.
That's it.
This is your path. You're good." But Bert was nervous to take me to see stand up. It was first time. The first time I saw him, I went, "You're so much smarter than your act.
Yeah.
Like you're a meathead,
Yeah.
but you're not that meathead.
Yeah.
You need to be a smart meathead because that's where you are. That's who you are.
Yeah. Well, I connect with that definitely. I play a dumb guy on the internet.
You're not dumb.
Yeah, but I lean into that.
Yeah, and Bert does too. And he's not dumb.
Because it's funny.
It's totally funny.
There's nothing funny about the guy who aces the test.
No.
Hits the home run.
No, maybe. Yeah, exactly. But maybe I'm not representing Bert the right way. He actually is a fucking meathead. He is. He
Yes.
is the guy that goes, "But you're a girl." And then
Yeah.
you look at him and go, "Really? Every single person on your team is a girl.
Yeah.
You employ like 8 girls.
course.
What are you fucking saying?" Like he's that kind of meathead where he
course.
doesn't even realize that he's a meathead. But he's also so smart.
Mhm.
And you just wouldn't expect the two in that package. Anyway, I love Bert's comedy. I always have.
Yeah.
I've always loved that he talks about
One of the great laws in the 48 Laws of Power is to play the fool.
is to play the fool.
Play the fool. Yeah.
I don't know the 48 Laws of Power.
It's a great book.
Is
And
it?
it's
Never heard of it.
psychotic. And
It's psychotic.
It's like
Why?
world domination, like narcissist, like handbook. But it's like all these laws about like how to essentially it's we're all playing the power game, whether it's your relationships with your boss, your employees. In any relationship, there's this like power struggle, and you're
Yep.
inherently in this sort of like battle, and it's how to essentially manipulate your way through life in order to get everything out of it. And it's a lot of little things like that. Like that was one of the laws, though. It's like, yeah, play the fool.
How play the fool.
Which is, it just allows people to lower their expectations of you.
Right.
It allows people to not really, you're just sort of like, you're like, no, I'll allow you to think that I'm here when I'm really up here.
Really
and you're
up
playing
here,
this
yeah.
game down here.
Totally.
So I'm playing this game up here.
That's totally right.
So yeah, but it's it's a really enjoyable read because what they do is they give you the law and then they will give you an example of it in history, how it is applied and how it worked. And an
Interesting.
example in history, how it failed where somebody didn't apply that law. Right. And it's really cool. Like
It's a cool book.
it's like they give you these, just it's real examples throughout history, everything from like kings to like monarchs to monks.
I have
to
to
like,
read this book.
really fun book. It's by there's a famous why am I blanking on his name? He's got a bunch of the Laws of Human Nature. I'm reading now.
You like to read?
When I say read, audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I know.
I have a dyslexic kid.
Yeah.
That's how you read. You
Oh,
read
yeah.
by listening.
Yeah, I really enjoy an audiobook.
Yeah, I do too. I love
yeah.
them. I listen to them all the time. Because I do shit like folding laundry, which actually sucks life out of my soul.
Yeah, of course.
So I feel like I am wasting my life when I fold laundry. So I put an audiobook on so I can bear it.
Oh, I couldn't imagine folding
I
laundry.
hate laundry. That's one thing I don't like about our lovely life that we have. Bert doesn't like people in our house.
So cleaning person?
No,
Oh,
it's me.
you have the big house.
It's a lot of fucking laundry. That fucking asshole
That's
makes
crazy.
a lot of laundry.
I'm sure,
When
yeah.
he's at home, he changes clothes 4 times a day.
Yeah.
4 times a day. The whole time he's home. George's friends were over for the summer. And at the end of the summer, one of her friends went home and said, "Feel so sorry for Leanne. Every time I look in that laundry room, it's like ankle deep in just shit. And it's all Bert's. Makes me insane."
I have a cleaning person that comes in and they come in on Mondays, and by the time Sunday comes, I just start throwing my clothes around the house. I'm just like, fucking clean it up. Because if the house isn't messy enough, when it comes to Monday, I'm like, what am I even fucking paying them
I
for?
know, right?
It's crazy. I
You
start
do
leaving the
nothing.
dishes out. I swear to God. Sunday, I turn into a fucking slob. It turns into like a college dorm. It really does. The whole house.
Bert's a college dorm every day. Have you ever been on his bus?
No, I
It's
haven't.
disgusting. Don't
Yeah,
go on it.
I
It's
won't.
so gross. He always wants me to go on tour with him, and I'm like, 2 days on that bus, and I'm losing my mind. It's so gross.
Yeah.
And he brings that home. That's one of the reasons we
Robert
work.
Greene is the author.
Robert Greene.
Sorry.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you.
Yeah, he's huge. I mean, it's a
I'm sure it'll be like, oh yeah, everybody's read this
Oh,
book,
you'll love
but
it.
me.
Yeah.
I love books, so I'll definitely listen to that book. But anyway, yeah, Bert he's an interesting. Being married to a comic, and for your girl, she should keep her own life.
Yeah.
I was talking about that last night at this meeting we had with a chef. She's a chef who's all over the place all the time doing TV shows and stuff. And her boyfriend's getting a little like not cool with so much travel. And she was like, "How do you do it?" so I can tell him how to do it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to have your own life that has nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
Like this sounds really dorky, but I run a Girl Scout troop. I've run it for 12 years. I volunteered every school the girls have ever been in. I have this podcast that's for me that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And none of this has anything to do with Bert. So keeping that, and I have a ton of friends that love Bert, but they don't need Bert to hang out with me.
Of course.
So if you can have all those things in place, and that's really true, I guess, in any marriage, even if your husband's 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So you should have your own shit.
Well, I also don't, it's not attractive. Like I'm really, one of the things that makes me really attracted to my chick is that she's so talented. Like she's so good at what she does, right? She's like really, really good. And it's like, I mean, she travels all over the world, and it's like, you know, from like my perspective, I'm like, wow, you're like legitimately living your dream. You woke up one day and said, this is what I want to do. And you're doing that and you're achieving it. And there's just something about somebody who's living what they want to do that it really, it's very, very attractive. It's a quality in a human being that I want to share that with. I'm inspired by it. I want to inspire that in them. But I don't want a chick. I've dated a few girls who like their entire identity becomes being your girlfriend. They're just there for that. And it's to me, in my opinion, it's not a very attractive quality. It's a great,
it's not very healthy either.
Kurt Metzger is a great comic. He came up with this expression, and it's called a dick puppet. And it's essentially you put your dick in them and then they act however you want them to act. I love that term, but I've dated a lot of dick puppets in my day.
Oh my God, a dick puppet.
Yeah. And that's not what, I don't think that's an attractive quality at all.
It's attractive for a minute. And then I think it gets old really fast.
You strokes your ego for a very short amount of time. Yeah.
For a minute. Just for a minute.
But I want my ego stroked by somebody who's great.
Well, totally. Well, that
is more valuable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going like, oh, this person holds like real value. And I'm like, oh, like this isn't just some asshole who like the next guy that came into their life. Like, you know, my girl, like the reality is she's beautiful. She could fucking go date an NBA player or like a celebrity, like if she wanted to, you know, and you know, she doesn't, and it feels better knowing that she has her own thing, and she's, you know, I look up to her in a lot of ways because of, you know, who she is and the way that she sort of carries herself. So that in turn, it makes me feel like a fucking rock star, like that we're so into each other.
Well, she's chosen you.
Yeah.
She's chosen you, and that makes you feel very valued, I'm sure. That's awesome. How did you get into stand-up? What were you doing in high school?
Well, no. So I told you before I was doing that job. I was selling comedy club tickets, promoting comedy clubs.
But you did that because you were interested in being a comic. No?
This is I answered an ad. I was 19 years old. I answered an ad in the Village Voice. Remember in New York City, the Village Voice?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And it was just, you know, promote for comedy clubs in New York City. And I answered that ad, and I was really, really good at that. And really what it wasn't even promoting comedy clubs. It was a belly-to-belly sales job, right? And I've had a lot of sales jobs. I've only had sales jobs before I did comedy.
How old were you?
I was 19 at the time.
That's what you said.
Right. And so you would go up to people in the street, right? It was for the New York Comedy Club. And I would say, hey, what's going on? Where are you from? They'd be like, oh, I'm from Idaho. I'm in town with my family. Start asking them questions. Like, I work for this comedy club. And then you try to sell them tickets. So they can go to see a show that weekend. And at the time, it was 8 tickets for $20.
Wow.
And you go to college campuses. You see, like, hey, you can bring 8 of your friends out. You got to buy 2 drinks when you get to the club. It was essentially papering the room. You got to keep the ticket money. Or I worked for a promotional company that took a percentage of it. I got to keep a percentage of what I sold. And then the comedy club gets their 2 drink minimum.
Right.
That was sort of the way the system worked. And there was probably a half a dozen comedy clubs in New York City that worked off of this system.
Right.
But very often it was just tourists being tricked into coming into a comedy show they didn't want to see.
Right.
A good salesman will sell you anything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was just a really good salesman. And I went out and I was very quickly able to make good money. And when I say good money, I'm talking about like $500 a week.
That's
but
good.
For a 19-year-old kid who came from nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, that's it. I was like, I'm rich.
Right.
I don't need anything else. I was like, I can do this. I remember thinking, I was like, I can do this for the rest of my life. It really came down to it.
So cute.
That was it. I was like, why would I need more than $500 a week? That's crazy.
That's
what would I ever need more than that for? Yeah, I got very good at it very quickly. And I became like a manager on that team. Then I ended up just saying, well, I don't fucking need to work for these people. I can literally go to a comedy club and start my own team. So I started my own promotional team where we had like 40 or 50 guys working 2 or 3 different comedy clubs, selling tickets. So they all worked for me. So by the time I was like 22 years old, I was making a lot of money, like really a lot of money, especially at that time. And then I started getting exposed to comedy, and I started to fall in love with comedy.
Yeah.
I remember smoking a joint with Greg Rogel, who's like, for all intents and purposes, an unknown comic in New York, but it's a genius, like brilliant comic. Like there's all these killers that were working the Comedy Cellar when I started that, like, a lot of them aren't, I don't even know where they're at right now, but like they're fucking monsters. Like, Mike Britt, Mike Yard, Greg Rogel. I mean, these guys will slay at the highest fucking level, but they didn't make, a lot of these guys are actually still out there doing great things, but they're not household names because they didn't, whether it's a timing thing or they didn't hit the social media thing the way that they should have, whatever it is. But New York had like a standard of fucking like absolute murderers. And I remember I had a joint and Greg Rogel came out and I was like, hey, you want to smoke a joint? And he was like, yeah. So, and I was just like, oh dude, this comic's smoking my weed. And just knowing now, I was like, yeah, dude, he wanted to just smoke some weed. He's just kind of, But it was just so romanticized about what comedy was. And then I kind of secretly wanted to do it.
Right.
I was always the class clown. I was always funny. And then I started producing my own show. So now we were selling tickets and I was like, well, now I want to and I produced music events when I was like a teenager. So I was always a producer and I was like, let me produce my own show. So I got a venue that we started selling tickets for. And then my host didn't show up one week or he couldn't make it. And I didn't know a lot of comics. So I was like, I'll just host the show. So then I spent a year, hosting my own shows, secretly wanting to be a comic, but being like, no, this is all I'll ever do. And then eventually, that side of it is a weird thing because in comedy now, people produce shows. They it'll be Bert Kreischer and Friends at the Comedy Store, right?
Yeah.
That's not like, nobody looks down at that. Like that's just the way it is now.
Yeah.
Back then, this is 17, 18 years ago, there was a negative connotation associated with being a producer, being, it's almost like, you had to produce your own shows in order to get stage time. So nobody really respected it. It was like the hierarchy of the clubs. You come in, you get your guest spots at the clubs, and then you get your 10 minutes, then you get paid for the 15 minutes. Then eventually you start working the road as a host, then a feature, then a headlining act, then you get your first TV credit and you get a development deal. And that was the whole, that was the path.
Yeah,
that's how everyone did it, And we all sort of tried to go down that traditional path. So I became almost like embarrassed. I was like, I don't want to produce shows anymore. And then I stopped producing and I just started doing stand-up comedy. Then, it all comes full circle. And now we do skank fests and guest digital. I produce all these things. And that's how everyone makes all of their own money by producing their own shit now. And everyone has their own independent channels. And but I was a little bit ahead of the curve, but I think I just, I got kind of like, whatever it was, just, the New York, there's just something like everyone wants to be Dave Attell. Everyone wants to just be smoking a cigarette, cool, not really giving a shit. It's like we're just telling our jokes. And there was nothing cool about being the guy who's sort of hustling too much. Yeah. So yeah.
Isn't that amazing how that part of your life set up this part of your life? That happens so much, I think. Yeah. I was a waitress when I was young. And with the shit that I do now, I just the other day thought, thank God I waited tables for 8 years. Yeah. You learn how to do so much shit all at the same time when you're waiting tables. And that's what I do today. Yeah. I have like 24 different to-do lists that are relative to all the shit I have going. I should have waited tables
because that's my biggest problem is just my ADD is.
Oh, well, it's a different bone. The being produced that is super creative.
Yeah. It's super creative.
Yeah, it's really creative.
If I do not like doing it, I will put it off until.
Well, that's because you're super creative. Yeah. That's I understand that totally. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you. I have to wrap it up though.
I had a great time.
It was so fun.
Yeah, seriously. Anytime. I love it. I love what you guys have done here. I'm inspired.
Aww.
I'm gonna go back on this flight back to New York and just fucking start writing out all my notes for the next year and lay it all out. I'm gonna be playing catch up over the next year or two with you guys because this is really, really inspiring. I love what you guys have built.
Well, Bert loves you guys so much. He thinks the world of all three of you.
Of course.
And he was so excited you were the first people to be in his studio. Yeah. That made him so happy.
We love Bert. There's not another guy that you want to root for more. He's just a good person who's talented and funny, and he doesn't have an ill thing to say about anybody. Just a legitimately positive human being.
That he is. Yeah. Well, he loves you. He loves all you guys. So thanks so much for coming. Thanks for being on my podcast.
Love you very much. Please check out all my other pods. And that's that.
How many do you have?
I do technically 2 podcasts now. I do Realize Podcast and Legion of Skanks, but we just started another competitive roast show called Spit Roast at the stand. So comedians are roasting different subjects, not each other, but that's a fun one that's starting to blow up right now. Really, really cool. So I always have multiple projects going on. You know, me and my sister did one for a while that might come back called Gomez Watches Seinfeld. We never watched Seinfeld, so we watch an episode and then just talk about it.
I love that.
Yeah. It was really good.
So
My sister
awesome.
she was great at it. She's just, you know, she's my sister. She's a weirdo.
Why is she a weirdo?
She's just, you know, whatever, you know, she's super funny, super creative, just doesn't have the same sort of like, it's a belief, it's a confidence in yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, she doesn't see the light at the end of the tunnel the same way that I do. And I'm just constantly seeing these lights and I'm like, got to get to the light, you know?
Did she not like doing the podcast?
No, she loved doing it, but she fucking, you know, we butted heads a lot.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you do, your siblings, right?
Yep.
Well, I hope you bring it back.
I hope so too.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling.